it's almost a cliche now that so many of these successful business people, politicians, whatever, they often talk about the times they failed.
Hmm.
Every politician has a story about the race they lost. Every entrepreneur has a story about the company that went bankrupt. And being willing to pick yourself up off of I think that is true. It is important. But there's a lot of people that just fail and actually never do get it off the ground. You don't hear those stories, right?
Mhm.
Because they don't become the CEO of PayPal. They just are the CEO of the 5 failed companies beforehand. I had a conversation with one of the celebrated Paralympic Olympians from Baltimore, Jessica Long.
Mhm.
She's the most decorated swimmer in,
Swimmer,
I
yeah.
think, history. And I remember after my first loss, going to her and saying, don't tell me about the athletes that don't medal, they train for 4 more years, and then they win the gold medal. Because if you tell me I'm going to be mayor and all I have to do is work my ass off for 4 years, I will do it in a heartbeat. I'll
Hmm.
wake up at 3 in the morning every day for the next 4 years. Tell me about the person who works up at 3 a.m. and trains for 4 years and doesn't medal again. Like, do they jump off a cliff? Like, that's what I'm
Hmm.
worried about.
Right.
And she said, it depends. And I said, on what? And she said, and it was such a simple insight, but it stayed with me. She said, it depends on whether they love swimming.
Hmm.
If they love swimming, they don't mind it, even after they don't medal the second time. But if you don't love swimming and it's just the gold medal or the silver medal, those 4 years, if you look back, are going to be preposterously frustrating.
Mhm.
I think that it is very important to find things that bring you joy. I remember a conversation with my son where he was thinking about starting a couple of online businesses, and he was talking about selling these interesting bugs online and also doing day trading. Is the text. He said, Dad, like, I know that day trading would make more money, but the website brings me joy. And he was like in 7th grade. And I remember like almost wanting to tear up
Hmm.
because you're like, if a kid can understand that like what you need to do is find a vocation that brings you joy, I think that is a huge piece of this. But I will end with one last insight. I read this in a Harvard Business Review article about businesses, and they were talking about how great leaders have resilience. They're able to overcome, even pick themselves back up. But there's a subset of them that not only after a failure are able to brush themselves off and get back on the horse and do it again, but they find meaning in the losses. And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I do this naturally where when I lose, I look back and I'm like, that loss was actually really important.
Mhm.
I wouldn't actually want it another way. If you ask me 2 weeks after, I will tell you I wanted it another
Hmm.
way. But you give me a little bit of time to reflect on it, 6 months, a year, a couple years. I think about all the setbacks, Brett, that you're alluding to. And I'm not sure that I would have wanted to live a life where I didn't have to endure them. Maybe not everyone, maybe a
Yeah.
couple of them we could have skipped, but I think that finding meaning in those parables and those low moments and saying that was actually important for me to become the person I needed to become. I think it's really important for people not just to be willing to pick up after a failure, but to think about how the failure was actually valuable, reflect on what meaning it has.
Hmm.
Just the idea that, would you want to go through that, strife at times, whether it was a failed marriage, a failed relationship, a failed business? Not really, but to change any of the course would change where you are today.
Totally. I don't wish some of these things on my worst enemy, but I'm almost grateful that I got a chance to do them. I'll end with this Chinese parable. There's a story about an elder in a village, and all the villagers are unhappy with their lives. And he tells all the villagers to come to the middle of the village and to bring a bag with all their troubles inside of it. And he tells them to open their bags and to walk around and look at every other person's bag and then pick up the bag that they want. And all the villagers have brought their bag of troubles. They go and look at every single one. And at the end, they go pick up theirs and walk away. I kind of think that's what life is,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody goes through these struggles. And if you really knew them, you'd say, you know what? I actually prefer mine.
Hmm.
I can handle what I've got. God gives us exactly what we need to get through exactly what we're going to face. And I hope everybody in every course is blessed with that insight. Maybe not immediately, but in due course.